In a recent development along the US-Mexico border, an alarming alert has been issued to Border Patrol agents, warning them about the discovery of military-grade weapons just south of Ajo, Arizona. These weapons were found on the Mexican side of the border, raising some serious concerns about escalating violence and security threats. Let's break down what was found, why it's so concerning, and what this could mean for both the US and Mexico. Now, according to the alert, the weapons discovered included 4 rocket-propelled grenades, or RPGs, 8 improvised explosive devices, commonly known as IEDs, and a large amount of ammunition. Now look, these are not just your typical small arms smuggled across borders. These are military-grade weapons designed for war zones. And this find is significant because it's evidence of the kinds of weapons being used by transnational criminal organizations, particularly in northern Mexico, as cartel violence continues to spiral out of control. But that's not all. Mexican authorities also discovered and dismantled a scout site. This is where cartel members likely had a lookout to monitor law enforcement activities or rival groups in the area. Scout sites are used by cartels for intelligence gathering and controlling smuggling routes, so dismantling one of these sites is actually a big deal. And the IEDs discovered are consistent with those that have been used in recent drone attacks in northern Sonora, Mexico. Over the last few years, cartels have started to use drones to carry out attacks, and these IEDs can be attached to drones to make them even deadlier. We're seeing a shift in how cartels operate. They're becoming more sophisticated and using tactics we'd expect to see in actual combat zones and not along a border between two countries. This discovery is just one example of what U.S. law enforcement agencies are calling a drastic escalation in the type of weaponry being deployed near the U.S.-Mexico border. Customs and Border Patrol sources have expressed their concerns about this increasing militarization by the cartels. And one source within the agency noted that while it's unlikely these weapons would be used on U.S. soil, especially against law enforcement, the situation is still highly volatile. The cartels don't want to bring that level of violence into the U.S., as it would be bad for their smuggling business. However, many agents are preparing for the worst because cartel behavior has been unpredictable lately. So Victor Avila, a retired supervisory special agent for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, weighed in on the situation saying U.S. law enforcement should be concerned for their safety, especially along the border, because those missiles and those weapons easily come across the border. His statement highlights the very real threat that law enforcement officers face, not just from people crossing the border illegally, but for the potential for deadly weapons to be smuggled into the U.S. The discovery of these weapons comes amid increased cartel violence in Mexico, particularly following the arrest of major cartel figures. In late July, Joaquin Gomez Lopez, the son of infamous cartel leader El Chapo, and Ismael El Mayo Zambada were arrested. Lopez allegedly abducted Zambada and brought him into the U.S. where he was arrested. And these high-profile arrests have triggered a wave of violence in Mexico, particularly in the state of Sinaloa, where the rivalry between different cartel factions has intensified. Now, the Mexican president has commented on the situation, stating that the arrest of Lopez and Zambada, which were carried out within Mexico's knowledge, have been a significant factor in the recent violence. And this bloodshed is part of a broader struggle for power among the cartels as they seek to fill the vacuum left by the arrest of their leaders. To put this in perspective, the violence we're seeing now in northern Mexico is part of a larger trend. Over the past year, tensions in the region have been steadily increasing. U.S. and Mexico authorities have been fighting a nearly constant battle to stop the flow of weapons, drugs, and people across the border. The arrest on the high-profile cartel members only adds fuel to the fire, of course. With each new leader taken down, rival factions fight to take control, leading to more violence, more deaths, and more instability in the region. And what's even more alarming is how these cartels are evolving. Cartels like the Sinaloa Cartel, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, are no longer just involved in drug trafficking. They're using tactics we associate with these terror groups. The use of drones, RPGs, IEDs, and other military-grade weapons is not just a sign of increasing power, it's a sign of how dangerous they've become. And this isn't just about smuggling drugs anymore. This is about controlling territory, exerting power, and taking their operations to a whole new level. And for the US, this poses a huge problem, of course. The weapons found on the Mexican side of the border are a reminder of just how close this violence is spilling over into American territory. While the cartels may want to avoid using these weapons in the US to protect their smuggling routes, it doesn't mean they won't if they feel threatened or desperate. As tensions rise, especially with the unpredictable actions of the cartels, US law enforcement needs to stay vigilant. Now, the U.S. military and law enforcement agencies are already on high alert, especially after the recent discovery of these military-grade weapons. In recent months, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has ordered more U.S. forces to the Middle East as tensions continue to flare in that region as well. However, with this new threat emerging closer to home, the focus could shift back to securing the southern border. The discovery of RPGs and IEDs near Ajo, Arizona is just the latest in a series of incidents showing how serious the situation is becoming. So, in conclusion, the discovery of these weapons is a wake-up call for both the US and Mexico. The cartels are not only using more dangerous and sophisticated weapons, but they're also becoming more aggressive in their tactics. With tensions already high following the arrest of major cartel figures, it's clear that the violence in northern Mexico is far from over. And for US law enforcement, the challenge will be to keep these weapons from crossing the border, while continuing to battle the constant flow of illegal drugs and human trafficking. And for Mexico, the challenge is even greater, restoring order in a country increasingly torn apart by cartel violence. So the stakes have never been higher, and the situation on the border is only getting more dangerous.